Hey, what's up everybody? Hammer Heart Metal Reviews here once again. Today we're starting a brand new series. In this series I'm going to be doing discography overviews for some bands where I own their entire discography on CD. I of course do discography rankings all the time. Some of those bands I have all their albums, some I don't, so I usually just put the images of the album covers up in the corner just to keep it consistent. But I thought, why not do something a little bit different instead of just ranking from my least favorite down to my favorite for all these bands? Sometimes it's fun to just go through chronologically, start at their beginning of their career, go all the way through to present day, run through each album in that order, and I'll kind of do like a mini review of each album. I'll still maybe do a quick ranked order at the end, but doing it chronologically, you can kind of see the development of the band throughout their career. And for this first edition in the series, I figured what better way to start than with one of my personal all-time favorite bands, Blind Guardian. So they have 11 full-length albums over the course of their career, the first one being from 1988 and the latest being from just last year, 2022. So I'm going to run through each of those albums from the very beginning of their career to the modern day and just give you my take on each one and show the CD. And yeah, that's what this series is going to do. So let's just get right into this. So they kicked off their career with their debut, Battalions of Fear. Absolutely love that album cover too. So this one is from 1988. At this point in their career, they're pretty much straight ahead speed metal. Wasn't the power metal that you have come to know from the band. Yeah, just check out that album cover. Absolutely amazing stuff there. Really love the artwork. And yeah, so German speed metal from the late 80s. You kind of know what you're in store for. They didn't have the over-the-top orchestrations or anything that got introduced later in their career. This is really stripped down and raw. Hansi Kirsch's voice is not as developed as it is on later releases, but man, this still kicks a lot of ass. You can start to see the direction they would go later, like with some of the guitar melodies and the solos. Like Andre Albrecht, his guitar playing is next level, and Marcus Siepin's rhythm guitar playing is no slouch either. Like, this is just the perfect band, and this is, while it's their humble beginnings and maybe these songs are not as developed as later on, they're still all-time classics on this album. To kick it off with Majesty, come on, how great is that song? You will be singing along instantly. Oh, Majesty. Just fucking amazing stuff. Like, these are sing-along songs, pure in-your-face speed metal, but absolutely amazing. You got really great instrumental songs on here as well. Trial by the Archon, By the Gates of Moria, Gandalf's Rebirth, to really show the musicality that they have. But there's other great songs on here too. Run for the Night, The Martyr is great. All in all, absolutely amazing way to kick off their career. I should say, before they were called Blind Guardian, they were called Lucifer's Heritage. The version of this album I have does actually feature some of their early demos from the Lucifer's Heritage day, which is cool to listen to. It's a lot more raw than the Blind Guardian stuff, but nonetheless, this is just really awesome stuff. Good way to kick off their career. If I was going to score this out of 10 for a debut, I will give this 8.5 out of 10. I really dig it. I know some people don't seem to like the early era of Blind Guardian, like the straight speed metal stuff, but I think it's amazing. I absolutely love the guitar. Really catchy songs. Awesome, awesome stuff. So, after that, their sophomore album was released the very next year, 1989, Follow the Blind. And wow, this one just dialed up the epicness compared to the debut. The songwriting got better, the performances got tighter. While it's still very much rooted in speed metal, they started incorporating some other stuff, but this, in essence, is still a pure speed metal album. But the songs on here are just a little more standout than on the debut, in my opinion. You got all-time classics like Banished from Sanctuary, Damned for All Time, so heavy and fast, just absolutely amazing. All-time classic, a live staple, Valhalla. Come on, absolutely amazing. Features Kai Hansen on guest vocals there. Like, this album is just really awesome. Honestly, it is a step up from the debut, in my opinion. The artwork, once again, like, I loved their artwork in their early days. This is just one of my favorite album covers ever, as you can see from the shirt I am wearing as well. So if I was to score this album out of 10, I do think it's a little bit better than the debut. I would give this 9 out of 10. It's solid. It's not their best album. They would still keep improving on this foundation. But for their pure speed metal era, it does not get much better than this. Definitely one of my favorite speed metal albums of all time. Follow the Blind. Amazing stuff. All right. Now when we get into the third album, it's where they started to incorporate some more influences and shift their style a little bit. This is from the very next year, 1990, Tales from the Twilight Hall. So come on, how good, sorry, Tales from the Twilight World. I'm mixing up with the song because the song is lost in the Twilight Hall, so I always kind of mix those up. But yeah, another awesome album cover. So this is where they started bringing in some more power metal influence and where they really started to get their own unique sound. Still very much rooted in speed metal, but yeah, expanded on the guitar playing by bringing in so much more melodics and just different styles of songs. It's not just in-your-face speed the whole time. And this is just another absolutely amazing album, really from front to back. There's not really any weak moments here. Traveler in Time, Welcome to Dying. This is the first album that featured a ballad by them, Lord of the Rings. And where I should have mentioned on the first couple albums there too, one of the highlights for me personally, being a big fantasy book nerd, is the lyrical inspiration that Hansi uses when writing these songs. You got everything from Michael Moorcock, the Elric saga, and you got Lord of the Rings and all the Tolkien lore, as well as many other influences as well. And it just adds an extra level to the songwriting and an extra level of enjoyment to hear him singing about these fantastical tales. And no band incorporates those influences better than Blind Guardian. Got more great songs on here. Lost in the Twilight Hall, like I mentioned earlier. The Last Candle is a great closer. All in all, this is another absolutely amazing album. Another one that I will give 9 out of 10 to. Amazing stuff. Do I like this or Follow the Blind better? I don't know. It's so close. Very tough. That's why I'm scoring them both 9 out of 10. All right. Now, the next album is where they really became the power metal legends that we come to know today. 1992's Somewhere Far Beyond, the fourth album by these guys. Another absolutely amazing album cover there. And this is just an absolute masterpiece of an album. While I absolutely love the first three albums, this one took it up a notch and is close to perfection. Every single second on this album is fucking perfect. You've got epic tales. It's not all in-your-face speed. Once again, they slow things down. They've started bringing in some backing choirs and gang singing, gang choirs kind of thing in different spots. And they really took control of their songwriting and did their own thing here, where maybe the first three albums had a very similar sounding production and similar sounding style. It started to switch up a little bit here, and this really became the Blind Guardian that took it to the next level, that became famous around the world because of how good this album is. Every single song here. Time, What is Time? Journey Through the Dark. Theater of Pain. The Quest for Tanalorn. Ashes to Ashes. The Bard Song. Both parts, the first one being one of their most famous ballads ever that they play at every live show. He just holds the mic out, the whole crowd sings along. Absolutely amazing. But I love the second part of that as well. Somewhere Far Beyond, the title track, is probably my favorite song on this album. Brings in some bagpipes to give it a little bit of a folky flavor. Just, yeah, amazing, amazing stuff. One of my favorite albums of all time. I'm going to give this 9.9 out of 10. Basically, it's a 10 out of 10, but I'm not giving it a 10 because there's one album that I like a little bit more, and that is the follow-up right after that from 1995, Imaginations from the Other Side. Once again, brilliant artwork on there. Absolutely love it. And yeah, this is possibly my favorite album of all time by anyone, not just by Blind Guardian. So even before I talk about the album, this is a 10 out of 10. I try not to give too many 10 out of 10s, but this album deserves it. It deserves all the hype. They did bring in a new producer here who had worked with bands like Metallica, and it definitely elevated the sound and the overall production of the album, and their songwriting just went to a whole other level here. This really dialed up the backing choirs and just gives it such an epic feel to this whole album. From start to finish, you will be pumping your fists in the air and just screaming every note along with Hansi as he's singing these. It is just amazing from start to finish. The ballad on here, Past and Future Secret, is possibly my favorite Blind Guardian ballad. And every single song here really hits the mark. The title track to kick it off, then into I'm Alive, then the ballad, like I said, then the script for my Requiem, Mordred song, Born in a Morning Hall, Bright Eyes, they have made a music video for, which is awesome. Another Holy War, and then to close it off with And the Story Ends. Like every single song here just kills. I should have been showing the back of these CDs too. Yeah, I get sidetracked sometimes doing these videos, but yeah, absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10 album. One of my favorite albums of all time. All right, so hard to follow up my favorite album of all time, but guess what? It's another close to perfect album, Nightfall and Middle Earth from 1998. Their sixth album, or sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, sixth album. I can't even count here. But yeah, Nightfall and Middle Earth, absolutely amazing album art. Once again, this one is a concept album, all based around the Silmarillion, J.R. Tolkien's lore about Middle Earth, and wow, there's lots of like interludes with narration in between the songs. That might not be for everyone, but it's best listened to as a whole with those narrative pieces in there to really get the scope of the whole story here. That being said, if you want to skip those and just listen to the actual songs, nothing wrong with that either, because all the songs on here are absolutely killer. Into the Storm, Nightfall, one of the most sing-alongable choruses ever. Mirror, Mirror, The Curse of Fëanor. Like, come on, this whole album, Time Stands Still at the Iron Hill. While I do prefer Imaginations from the Other Side, this one is not very far behind. This is another absolute masterpiece. I give it 9.5 out of 10. This was a string of 3 albums in a row that I don't think any band has really matched, at least in the power metal spectrum, with Somewhere Far Beyond, Imaginations from the Other Side, and Nightfall and Middle Earth. Doesn't get any better than that for me personally. Like 3 pretty much perfect albums in a row. Absolutely amazing stuff. Yeah. Now let's move it along. Okay. The next album, A Night at the Opera from 2002. So this is another one that is a very solid album. It definitely saw a shift in style from the previous album. They really started to go in a more progressive direction and bring in way more orchestration. So I could see this album not necessarily being for everyone, not their best, but I still personally really enjoy it. This was the last album that featured Thomas Stotch on drums. I feel like, I'm pretty sure he said he didn't really like the direction it was going, so after this album he left the band. But that being said, like, I still dig this album a lot. Yes, it's a change in style, it's a shift in gear a little bit, but I applaud them for going for something different here. Like, yeah, once again, the album art's really cool there, too. You don't want to just do the same album over and over again, so why not switch it up? And if they have some influences with some symphonic music and orchestrations, bring it in there. Make it so grandiose and big. And there are still great songs on here. Battlefield, Under the Ice, The Maiden and the Minstrel Knight is absolutely amazing. The Soul Forged is probably my favorite song on here. Of course, you can't talk about this album without talking about the 14-minute closer, and then there was Silence. Just epic. Basically, the word epic defines that song. It's 14 minutes long. It's Blind Guardian at its finest for their later, more progressive direction. But yeah, I still dig this album. While it's not my favorite, I still give it 8 out of 10. I still really dig it. Solid stuff. This band is pretty much incapable of making a bad album. So still definitely go check that out if you have not heard it. All right. Up next, from 2006, the follow-up to that was A Twist in the Myth. So this one, yeah, like I said before, they switched to drummers for this album. This was the first album to feature their new drummer. For me, this is the one Blind Guardian album that doesn't stand out as much as the others. I don't want to say it's bad, because it's not, but I feel like maybe after the last album, they wanted to play it a little bit safe and not necessarily shoot for the fences like they had on A Night at the Opera. This one is more stripped down. It doesn't have the more progressive direction. It doesn't have the backing orchestrations really in too many places. It's more of just a playing it safe album, but it's still not bad. Like, I don't want to say it's bad. I still enjoy it. It's just, out of all 11 of these albums, this is probably my least favorite one, but there are still some good songs on here. The artwork still kicks ass. Like, look at that. You're going to throw a dragon on the cover. I'm into it. And, yeah, favorite songs on here, like Otherland is great. Scalds and Shadows is probably my favorite track on here, even though it's the ballad on the album, but it's really solid. The New Order is great. Like, all in all, it's still a pretty decent album. I will give it 7.5 out of 10. I don't think I'd quite give it an 8 out of 10 just because there's some things holding it back from being as good as it can be. I feel like lyrically it's not as interesting as some of the other albums as well, but nonetheless, I don't want it to sound like I'm just hating on this album, because I don't hate it. I still listen to it all the time. This is my favorite band, one of my favorite bands anyways. It's just, if I'm being fair, over the course of 11 albums, this is probably my least favorite one. But then, okay, so to follow that up, the next album didn't come out till 4 years later in 2010, At the Edge of Time. And this one, wow, what a triumphant return to form. Not that it was really to say that was a misstep with A Twist in the Myth, but slightly, and this one corrected the course right away. This album is absolutely amazing. It brought it back in the more progressive direction and orchestrations that they are kind of known for in their later career, but this still has a ton of ripping songs too, with great guitar. The album art is pretty cool there too. If I had to pick favorite songs here, Ride Into Obsession is great. A Voice in the Dark, of course, the closing track, Wheel of Time, based all around Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. That is the highlight of the album here. It's the longest track to close it off. I love when they put these epic long songs to close off the album. It's just a great way to cap off the epicness. There are a couple like ballads on here as well, with War of the Thrones and Curse My Name. But all in all, from front to back, I really dig this album. I think it's solid. If there was any doubt after A Twist in the Myth whether they still had it, this definitely put that to rest. This is an amazing album. I give it 9 out of 10. I think it's pretty much on par with some of their earlier stuff, and this is one of their best later day albums in my opinion. All right, after that, got Beyond the Red Mirror from 2015. So there was a 5-year gap here in between At the Edge of Time and this. This one, maybe the album art not as interesting as some of their previous ones. It's more of just like computer generated, but nonetheless, album art doesn't necessarily make the album better or not. I do like a good album cover, just adds to the experience a little bit, but wow, this album really kicks ass too. Maybe it's not quite on the level of At the Edge of Time in my opinion, but it's not too far off. There are absolutely great songs on here. Twilight of the Gods, The Holy Grail, absolute thrashers, so fast and aggressive in your face. The Throne is awesome. And once again, they close the album off with the longest song on the album with Grand Parade. And that is just absolutely epic as well. This is like a loose concept story, I believe, tying back to the Imaginations from the Other Side albums, that like one of the songs then led into this story, like, and the story ends, kind of goes into this same concept, which is pretty cool. Hansi always keeps it consistent with his lyrical themes, and yeah, this one's no exception. Really solid album. I would give this one 8 out of 10. Maybe it's not their best. It's not the most standout over the course of 11 albums, but it's also not their worst. I think I'd put this on par with like A Night at the Opera. Kind of right in that same boat anyways if I was going to rank these. But yeah, awesome, awesome stuff. So of course you probably know after this they did put out an all-symphonic album. What I don't really consider that a Blind Guardian album, so I'm not including it here in this. Also, I don't own it. I never bought the Twilight Symphony or whatever it is. I listened to it a few times. It wasn't really for me. I like guitars in my metal, in my music. I don't really dig just a symphonic album. Hansi sounded great on it, but nonetheless, I just never got around to buying it. The completist in me kind of wants it just so that I have everything that Blind Guardian ever released. Like, I'm also not including live albums. I do have like live DVDs and stuff of the band, but that being said, like if I went and bought this symphonic album, I probably wouldn't really put it on that often, so why waste the money other than just to have the complete set? But I'm getting off track here. After the symphonic album, they went back to their roots with their latest album. bringing back some speed, bringing back some aggressiveness with the God Machine from 2022. I will say I don't really love the album art here. Like, it's okay, another kind of computer generated one. But wow, yeah, if you thought after the symphonic album that they weren't going to be putting out any more bangers, dead wrong. This album kicks absolute ass. They got still some more progressive moments on here too. I don't want to say it's just a pure speed metal album. It's not that, but they definitely went back to their roots and gave us some very heavy songs. You got like Deliver Us from Evil, Violent Shadows is great. The ballad on here, Let It Be No More, is pretty good. Blood of the Elves is possibly my favorite track on the album. Like, all in all, this album kicks ass. I will say it could, like the closing song, Destiny, it's decent. It doesn't quite strike the same chord with me as some of their other album closers, like The Grand Parade, Wheel of Time, or and Let There Be Silence. Like, that would be one thing that would elevate this even more if it had a better closing song or maybe a more epic closing song. But all that being said, this album still really kicks ass. I would give it a 9 out of 10. I think I did a review for this when it first came out. I don't remember what I scored it. Probably very close to 9 out of 10, but opinions change over time. And this one is definitely a standout in their later day career. Very solid stuff. If this is the last album they ever do, I mean, I hope it's not. I hope they're still going to do more, but this would be a good way to go out. But they're still touring. They're still doing a bunch of stuff. So hopefully we get even more material and then I can update all this. So anyways, yeah, this is just trying something new here. Like I said, going chronologically instead of from least favorite to favorite. Can kind of see my ranking just by all the scores that I just gave it. If you wanted me to run through a quick ranking, my favorite is Imaginations from the Other Side. Second would be Somewhere Far Beyond. Third, Nightfall and Middle Earth. Fourth, probably Tales from the Twilight World. Kind of tied for fourth and fifth with Fall of the Blind. Sixth, I'll go with At the Edge of Time. Seventh, I'll go with the newest one, The God Machine. Eighth, the debut, Battalions of Fear. Ninth, Beyond the Red Mirror. 10th, Night at the Opera. 11th, A Twist in the Myth. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. I'll probably do some more like this. Don't worry, I'm still going to be doing discography rankings from least favorite to favorite. I'm not completely abandoning that. I just felt like switching it up a little bit, giving me a good chance to maybe show off pieces of my collection at a time. I know some people have asked me to do more like collection videos and stuff like that, which I'm not always into because there's just too many CDs and it's hard to pick. I like doing the underrated ones, but maybe videos like this give me a chance to just really talk about a band and show off all the different CDs that I have by them, because I like collecting physical media. I like listening to CDs more than just streaming. It's part of the experience. But yeah, I am rambling on here. Guess I don't know how to wrap up a video. So until next time, Hammerheart Metal Reviews out.